Hey, everyone. My name is Rebecca, and I am 32 years old. What I am about to tell you is a story about family, betrayal, and the incredibly painful lesson that sometimes the people who are supposed to uplift you are the very ones who will cut you down. It's about having something promised, having it snatched away under false pretenses, and finding the strength to use that injustice to forge your own path, even if it meant impacting the very people who hurt you. What happened to me felt like a punch to the gut, but what I did next? Well, let's just say I used their own cruelty to fund their future competition. I want to share the whole story with you, raw and honest. Before I dive in, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you have ever felt completely blindsided and betrayed by someone you trusted, especially family, please hit that like button. It helps me know I am not alone in these difficult experiences, and maybe it will help you feel less alone too. Also, consider subscribing if you want to hear more stories about navigating toxic relationships and finding your voice. Growing up, my relationship with my mother's side of the family was complicated. They were successful, loud, and incredibly proud of their achievements. My uncle, my mother's younger brother, built a medium-sized but highly respected company in the tech sector. Let's call it Innovate Solutions. From the outside, they were a picture of familial support and entrepreneurial spirit. Get a good education, work hard, and maybe, just maybe, there might be a place for you at Innovate Solutions one day. That was the unspoken expectation, the golden ticket dangled before all the cousins. I watched my older cousins join the company after college, some thriving, others wilting under the intense pressure and the unique brand of family management, which often blurred the lines between professional hierarchy and personal favor. I, on the other hand, was a bit of an outlier. I was studious, yes, but I pursued my own interests, carving out a niche for myself in data analytics and project management. I didn't jump at the chance to work for Uncle David straight out of university. I wanted to prove myself independently first. I spent several years working for larger corporations, honing my skills, gaining experience, and building a reputation based purely on my merit, not my last name. This path, while fulfilling, sometimes felt like a quiet rebellion against the family expectation. There were subtle comments at family gatherings, questions about why I hadn't considered joining Innovate Solutions, suggestions that my skills would be so much more valuable there than wherever I was currently employed. Despite this underlying pressure, I maintained a cordial relationship with my aunt, Uncle David's wife, and my cousins who worked at the company. They were family, after all. We saw each other at holidays, shared updates about our lives, and generally kept up appearances. The reality was, while they were cordial, there was often an undercurrent of something. Maybe it was competitiveness, maybe it was a subtle form of gatekeeping, but I always felt like I was on the periphery, observing the inner workings of the family business from a distance. I told myself it was better this way. I had my independence, my own career path, my own successes that weren't tied to family approval. Then, about 3 years ago, things changed. Innovate Solutions was expanding rapidly and needed someone with a very specific skill set in data analytics to manage a critical new project. A headhunter reached out to me. Initially, I wasn't interested. I was happy with my current job. But the offer was incredibly attractive. Not just the salary, which was competitive, but the role itself was a significant step up. And perhaps most compellingly, there was the potential to finally bridge that gap with my mother's side of the family, to prove that I could contribute meaningfully to their success, to finally feel fully accepted within that sphere. Uncle David called me personally after the headhunter made contact. He sounded genuinely enthusiastic, talking about how proud he was of my career trajectory and how he had heard wonderful things about my work. He spoke about bringing fresh talent into the family business, talent that understood the market from a different perspective. He pitched it as a homecoming, a chance to build something together, family working side by side. He mentioned a substantial signing bonus, a significant sum, well over $50,000, as a welcome gesture, a symbol of their commitment to me and the value they placed on my expertise. $50,000 was a lot of money. It represented a down payment on a small apartment I had been dreaming of buying, a financial cushion that would provide immense security. But more than the money, it was the gesture. It felt like a validation of my years of hard work outside the family sphere, a recognition that I had built something valuable independently that they now wanted to bring into their fold. It felt like the golden ticket was finally being offered, not just because I was family, but because I was good at what I did. I was hesitant, weighing the pros and cons, the potential upsides of family connection against the potential downsides of family drama bleeding into professional life. But the offer, the role, the promise of the signing bonus, and the genuine-sounding warmth from Uncle David were persuasive. After much deliberation, I accepted the offer from Innovate Solutions. Joining Innovate Solutions was initially a whirlwind. There was the awkwardness of transitioning from being a cousin they saw at holidays to a colleague they saw every day. Some cousins who worked there were welcoming, others were cooler. I quickly learned that the family hierarchy extended into the company structure. Uncle David was the undisputed patriarch. My aunt handled the finances and human resources in her own unique, often unpredictable, way. My cousins held various positions, some earned, some seemingly inherited. I was brought in to lead a new data analytics division crucial for developing cutting-edge predictive modeling software, which was the company's big push for the next few years. The project was challenging but exciting. I threw myself into it, working long hours, implementing new systems, and assembling a small, talented team of non-family employees. I was determined to prove Uncle David right for hiring me and to prove to myself that I could not only survive but thrive in the family business environment. And I did thrive. The initial data models we built showed incredible promise, exceeding the projections I had presented during my hiring process. We secured a major pilot client based on our early results. Morale within my small team was high. I felt a sense of accomplishment, a quiet satisfaction that my skills and effort were genuinely contributing to the company's growth. I felt like I was earning my place, finally. During this time, the signing bonus was mentioned occasionally, usually in passing by Uncle David or Aunt Carol, his wife. "Almost time for that bonus, Rebecca. Keep up the great work," Uncle David would say with a smile. Aunt Carol, who managed the payroll and finances, would make vague comments like, "We'll get that sorted for you once things are finalized with the new project phase." There wasn't a firm date, but the understanding was clear. The bonus was coming as promised, tied to the successful integration into the company and the launch of this critical project phase. I felt a growing sense of security and optimism. I started tentatively looking at apartments, allowing myself to dream of that down payment, that financial independence I had worked so hard for. The professional success felt good, but the idea of finally having that promised financial cushion was a source of genuine excitement. It felt like everything was finally falling into place. My career was on an upward trajectory, and my relationship with my mother's side of the family seemed to be strengthening. I was contributing, I was valued, I was family. It was a powerful combination, and for a while, it felt like a dream come true. The cracks started to show subtly at first. Small things. My input on strategic decisions, initially welcomed, began to be second-guessed or sometimes outright dismissed in favor of suggestions from cousins with less relevant expertise. Information I needed for my project was sometimes delayed or difficult to obtain. Aunt Carol became less accessible when I tried to discuss the bonus, her responses becoming clipped and vague. When I asked for a more concrete timeline, she would sigh and say, "Rebecca, these things take time. The company's finances are complex. We'll get to it." I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just the natural friction of integrating a new high-level employee, even a family one. Maybe the company was facing unforeseen financial complexities, though from my vantage point, the new project seemed incredibly successful and lucrative. I reminded myself that I was still relatively new, that trust takes time to build, even among family. The turning point came during a quarterly performance review. Uncle David was there, as was Aunt Carol and one of my cousins, Kevin, who was a senior manager in a different department but seemed to have a lot of influence. The meeting started positively. They praised my work on the new project, acknowledging its success and potential. I felt a swell of pride. This was it, I thought. They saw my value. Then, the conversation shifted. Aunt Carol cleared her throat. Rebecca, she began, her tone now cool and formal. There are some concerns we need to discuss. Concerns? I was taken aback. My performance metrics were excellent. My team was performing well. What concerns could there be? She proceeded to list a series of vague complaints. A perceived lack of team spirit, difficulty collaborating with existing staff, and most confusingly, a certain independence that perhaps doesn't align with the family culture here. I was stunned. This didn't sound like me at all. I had worked hard to integrate, to be collaborative. I specifically hired a team that worked well together, and we had excellent internal reviews. Uncle David chimed in, his voice softer but firm. Rebecca, we value family here. We operate differently than those big corporations you're used to. It's about loyalty, about fitting in. We've heard things. Concerns from other family members. Heard what things? I asked, my voice tight. From whom? They became evasive. Just general feedback, Uncle David said. People feel you're not fully on board with the way we do things. Kevin then added, yeah, Rebecca, sometimes it feels like you think you're better than everyone. Like your way is the only way. This was unfair and untrue. I introduced new methods because they were more efficient and effective, but I always did so collaboratively, explaining the reasoning. The meeting continued, a bizarre back and forth where they presented these nebulous accusations, refusing to provide specific examples or name names. It felt like they were building a case against me, but I couldn't understand why. Finally, Aunt Carol brought it back to the bonus. Given these concerns, she said, carefully choosing her words, and the fact that the project is still in a pilot phase, we've decided to reassess the signing bonus. We feel at this time that issuing such a large sum might not be prudent, especially with the feedback we've received. My blood ran cold. Reassess. I repeated, the word feeling foreign and sharp. It was a promised part of my compensation package. It was one of the reasons I accepted this role. Promises can change, Rebecca, Aunt Carol said, her expression flat. Business is fluid. We need to ensure everyone is a good fit before committing to such expenditures. And frankly, the feedback suggests you may not be. So, you're revoking the signing bonus? I asked directly, needing to hear them say it. There was a pause. Uncle David looked uncomfortable. Aunt Carol finally nodded. Yes. We are revoking the signing bonus until we see significant improvement in your integration and team spirit. Consider it deferred indefinitely. I sat there, stunned. $52,000. Gone. Not because I failed at my job. They had just praised my project's success, but because of vague, unsubstantiated concerns and feedback that felt suspiciously like excuses. It felt like a cruel bait-and-switch. They used the promise of the bonus to get me in the door, to leverage my skills for their new critical project, and now that I was embedded and indispensable to that project, they were pulling the rug out from under me, citing reasons that felt entirely fabricated or twisted. The feedback they mentioned felt like a deliberate misrepresentation of my actions and character. I wasn't aloof. I was focused on delivering results. I wasn't difficult to collaborate with. I challenged outdated processes in a professional manner. The independence they disliked was simply my reliance on data and best practices rather than blind adherence to how things have always been done within the family structure. They were weaponizing the very qualities that made me effective outside their system. I left that meeting feeling numb, then angry, then deeply hurt. This wasn't just about the money. It was about the principle. It was about the betrayal of trust, the casual disregard for a promise made, and the flimsy, unfair justifications they used. It was about the implication that I was the problem, that I didn't fit in, when all I had done was work hard and deliver results. It felt like the family gate had slammed shut in my face, not because I wasn't capable, but because I wasn't pliable enough, not willing to conform to their specific, sometimes illogical, way of operating. The following days were a blur of disbelief and emotional turmoil. I tried to talk to Uncle David privately, appealing to his sense of fairness, reminding him of our initial conversations, the promise he made. He was sympathetic but ultimately deferred to Aunt Carol, saying, "She handles the finances, Rebecca. And we have to listen to feedback from the team. You need to work on being more one of us." "One of you?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I'm your niece, Uncle David. I am family." "Yes, you are," he said, avoiding my gaze. "But business is business. You need to earn your place here, like everyone else." The irony was staggering. Most of the cousins hadn't earned their places. They were given them. And I had earned my place through performance, only to have it questioned based on these vague accusations. I tried talking to Aunt Carol again, but she was even colder. She reiterated the concerns, elaborated on the supposed disruption I was causing, and even suggested that perhaps I wasn't cut out for the family business environment after all. It became clear that they were not going to budge. The bonus was gone, and they were justifying it by systematically undermining my reputation and questioning my character within the company. They were actively creating a narrative that I was difficult, a bad fit, using it as a shield for their broken promise. This was the misrepresentation. They weren't just denying the bonus. They were actively poisoning my position within the company to make it look like their decision was warranted. The sting of the financial loss was significant, but the pain of the betrayal was far deeper. This was family. These were people who were supposed to support me, who had actively recruited me, who had made a significant promise. And they had broken that promise, not just for financial reasons, but using character assassination as their tool. It felt like a deliberate act of cruelty, designed not just to save money but to push me out, to put me back in my place, outside their inner circle. The struggle for validation felt impossible. How could I validate my worth to people who were determined to devalue me? How could I fight for truth when they were actively spreading falsehoods about me? I felt a deep sense of hurt and injustice. I had worked tirelessly, delivered outstanding results, and in return, I was being punished and pushed away, all because I didn't fit neatly into their predetermined box of what a family member, employee should be. I was too independent, too focused on meritocracy, too unwilling to play their internal political games. The emotional impact was immense. I felt demoralized, confused, and incredibly angry. The atmosphere at work became tense. I felt isolated, knowing that concerns about me were being whispered, likely exaggerated or invented. I realized then that staying at Innovate Solutions under those conditions was untenable. Even if I could somehow navigate the toxic atmosphere and regain their trust, which felt impossible given their willingness to lie, I would always be beholden to their arbitrary rules and vulnerable to their unpredictable decisions. I couldn't build a stable career or a secure future in an environment where my value could be revoked on a whim, based on manufactured complaints. The signing bonus represented not just money, but opportunity. It was supposed to be the key to unlocking my financial independence, to finally achieving that goal of owning my own place. When they took that away, it felt like they were taking away my future, my ability to stand on my own 2 feet outside their influence. And that's when the anger started to solidify into something cold and determined. They thought they could use me, discard me, and suffer no consequences. They thought they could break a promise and weaponize family ties to keep me silent and compliant. They thought they had all the power because they held the purse strings and controlled the narrative within their company. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had given me access. Access to their strategies, their weaknesses, their market position. Access to understanding exactly what they valued and what they feared. And they had shown me, unequivocally, that their promises meant nothing and their loyalty was conditional. The money they had promised me, the $50,000 that was supposed to help me build my future, was now a symbol of their betrayal. I couldn't get the bonus, but the principle of that money, the opportunity it represented, was still burning in my mind. What if I couldn't use it for my intended purpose, but I could use it to represent the cost of their betrayal? What if I used that principle to invest in something that would directly challenge them? I began doing research, late at night after emotionally draining days at work. I looked at Innovate Solutions' competitors. Who were they? What were their strengths and weaknesses? Where was the market headed? My background in data analytics gave me a unique advantage here. I could quickly assess market dynamics, identify emerging players, and understand the competitive landscape in a way most people couldn't. I focused on smaller, agile companies that were working on similar predictive modeling technology, but approaching it from slightly different angles. Innovate Solutions, despite its success, had a certain inertia, a reliance on established methods. The newer companies were hungrier, more innovative, less bogged down by internal politics. One company in particular stood out. Let's call it Apex Analytics. They were a startup, well-funded, but still in the early stages of developing their core product. Their technology was promising, and their team seemed incredibly sharp. Crucially, they were operating in a way that felt completely opposite to Innovate Solutions, collaborative, merit-based, focused solely on innovation and results. The more I researched Apex Analytics, the more I saw them as a genuine threat to Innovate Solutions' long-term market position, precisely because they weren't constrained by the legacy systems and the restrictive family culture that sometimes hampered Innovate Solutions. An idea began to form, an idea that felt both incredibly risky and deeply satisfying. I couldn't get the $50,000 they promised me, but I had savings. I had the money I had earned through my actual work at Innovate Solutions, salary that they couldn't retroactively take away, thankfully, though I wouldn't have put it past them. It wasn't $50,000, but it was a significant amount, enough to make a difference. What if I used that money, the money I earned while they were planning to betray me, and invested it in Apex Analytics? What if I used the sum that represented the principal of the signing bonus, the value they claimed they placed on me but refused to pay, and used it to fund a competitor? It wouldn't be the revoked bonus itself, but it would be funded by the time and expertise I gave to them under false pretenses. It would be a tangible representation of the cost of their betrayal. It was a bold, even audacious, idea. It felt like a direct response, a way to reclaim some agency in a situation where they had tried to strip me of all power. It was also deeply personal. This wasn't just about business. It was about family, about loyalty, about a broken promise that cut to the core of my sense of worth. Funding their competitor felt like a way to turn the tables, to use their own actions against them. I started quietly reaching out to contacts in the industry, discreetly asking about Apex Analytics. I networked, learned more about their team, their funding rounds, their roadmap. I discovered they were looking for seed investors, individuals who believed in their vision and could provide not just capital but potentially strategic insight. I made a decision. I would resign from Innovate Solutions. I would walk away from the toxic environment, the broken promises, the unfair accusations. And I would take my savings, the money I earned while proving my worth to a company that ultimately denied it, and invested in their most promising competitor. Drafting my resignation letter was difficult. It wasn't just quitting a job. It felt like severing a tie, closing a door on a part of my family life I had hoped to strengthen. But the thought of staying, of continuing to work for people who had treated me this way, was unbearable. I kept my reasons professional in the letter, citing a desire for a different career path and a more aligned company culture, but omitting the real, painful truth of the betrayal. Resigning sent shockwaves through Innovate Solutions, especially since my project was so critical. Uncle David and Aunt Carol were surprised, almost indignant. They tried to convince me to stay, suddenly backtracking on some of their criticisms, offering vague assurances that we could work things out, but it was too late. The trust was broken, irreparable. Their sudden attempts at conciliation felt hollow, manipulative. They hadn't wanted to work things out when I was hurt and confused. They only wanted to fix things when my departure became inconvenient for them. This was another layer of manipulation, the attempt to regain control once their actions had consequences they didn't anticipate. I held firm. I explained calmly, but firmly, that I had made my decision. I transitioned my project as professionally as possible, handing over all documentation and briefing my team thoroughly. I didn't air my grievances or reveal my plans. I simply walked away, leaving them to grapple with the hole my departure created. Once I was free of Innovate Solutions, I finalized my investment in Apex Analytics. It was a significant portion of my savings, a risk, but one I felt compelled to take. I wasn't just investing money. I was investing my belief in a different way of doing business, a way based on merit and integrity, the antithesis of what I had experienced. I also offered my services as an advisor, leveraging my knowledge of the market and, yes, my insights into innovate solution strategies and vulnerabilities, all gained legitimately during my employment. Of course, nothing confidential or proprietary. Apex Analytics welcomed both the investment and my expertise. I didn't make a grand announcement about my investment or my advisory role. I didn't need to. My focus was on helping Apex Analytics succeed. I worked with them, providing guidance, making connections, and watching their technology develop. It was incredibly rewarding to be part of a team that valued my contributions without the baggage of family politics and broken promises. The true climax of this story unfolded over the next year or so. Apex Analytics, fueled by their innovative approach and savvy market strategy, which I was proud to have played a part in shaping, began to gain serious traction. They secured major contracts, their product launched to critical acclaim, and they started directly competing with Innovate Solutions on key bids. Initially, Uncle David and Aunt Carol seemed oblivious. They were probably too caught up in dealing with the fallout from my departure and trying to fill the void in their analytics division. But as Apex Analytics' success grew, it became impossible to ignore. News travels fast in the tech industry. It wasn't long before they learned about my connection to their rising competitor. I received a furious call from Aunt Carol. Her voice was shaking with rage. "Rebecca, how could you? Working with them? After everything we did for you? Everything you did for me?" I repeated, the old hurt surfacing but now tempered with a newfound strength. "You mean recruiting me with a promise you never intended to keep? Undermining me when I delivered results? Lying about my performance to justify revoking a promised payment? That bonus was conditional," she shrieked. "You didn't fit in. You weren't a team player." "I wasn't a player in your games, no," I said, my voice steady. "I was focused on the work, and I earned my place. You chose to break your word and try to force me out. I simply chose where to take my skills and my resources next." "Your resources?" Uncle David's voice, tight with anger, joined the call, clearly on speakerphone. "Are you telling us that you used money you got while working for us to help our competitor?" "I used money I earned," I corrected him. "Money you couldn't take back, unlike the $50,000 you promised and then stole from me. Consider my investment in Apex Analytics the cost of doing business with people who don't keep their word. It's the $50,000 you owed me, reinvested in a company that values integrity and merit." It's poetic, really. Silence on the other end. They were processing it. The full implication of what I had done. I hadn't just left. I had used the very energy and resources I had built while working under their broken promise to directly fuel their competition. It wasn't vengeance for the sake of it. It was turning their injustice into a catalyst for my own forward movement and, yes, their discomfort. It was taking the principle of the stolen opportunity and investing it in a place where opportunity was real and earned. "You are no longer family," Aunt Carol finally hissed, her voice dripping with ice. "That decision was made by you," I replied calmly. "When you broke your promise and tried to destroy my reputation, I simply accepted it and built something better." The call ended abruptly. That was the confrontation. Raw, painful, but ultimately empowering. I had said my piece. I had stood up for myself. I hadn't just walked away. I had acted, using the situation they created to my advantage and theirs to their detriment. The fallout was significant. The family was split. Some cousins were furious with me, echoing Uncle David and Aunt Carol's sentiment that I had betrayed the family. Others, who had also experienced the less savory side of working at Innovate Solutions, privately expressed admiration or at least understanding for my actions. My mother was caught in the middle, heartbroken by the rift, but ultimately supporting my right to stand up for myself after hearing the full, unvarnished truth of what had happened. Innovate Solutions faced real challenges from Apex Analytics. While my investment wasn't the sole reason for Apex's success, it came at a crucial time, providing capital and strategic insight that helped them accelerate their growth and directly challenge Innovate Solutions' market share. They lost bids, They lost talent, and their reputation took a hit as word of their internal dynamics and my departure, and subsequent involvement with Apex spread within the industry. My relationship with Uncle David and Aunt Carol, and the cousins who sided with them, was irrevocably damaged. Communication ceased. Family gatherings became awkward, if I even attended them, which I rarely did anymore. It was painful, the loss of those connections, even if they had been flawed. But it was also necessary. I had set a boundary, a massive, undeniable boundary, that said I would not be mistreated, lied to, or taken advantage of, even by family. This experience taught me profound lessons. Firstly, not all family is safe or trustworthy. Blood ties don't automatically equate to loyalty or integrity. Sometimes the people closest to you can inflict the deepest wounds. Secondly, the importance of standing up for yourself, even when it's terrifying and the people you're standing up to hold power over you. Walking away from that job was scary, but staying would have cost me my self-respect and my mental health. Thirdly, that injustice, while painful, can be a powerful motivator. They thought they were taking something from me, but their action galvanized me, forcing me to find a new path and use my resources in a way I never would have otherwise considered. Using the principle of the money they stole to fund their competitor wasn't just about getting even. It was about reclaiming my power and demonstrating that their actions had consequences. It was a strategic move born of necessity and fueled by a deep-seated need for justice. My career at Apex Analytics, initially as an advisor, then I joined in a more formal capacity for a time before moving on to another opportunity one built, flourished. I was valued, respected, and worked alongside people who operated with integrity. The financial return on my investment was significant, far exceeding the $50,000 that was initially promised and then revoked. That money, earned through my resilience and strategic thinking, genuinely helped me achieve the financial independence I had initially sought with the signing bonus. It felt like a full-circle moment, a victory built on the foundation of their defeat. Setting boundaries with family is one of the hardest things you can do. It often involves pain, conflict, and the potential loss of relationships. But I learned that you have to protect your worth, your truth, and your future. You cannot let someone else's toxic behavior dictate your life or your sense of self. Looking back now, several years later, the initial pain has faded, replaced by a quiet confidence and a sense of vindication. Innovate Solutions is still in business, but they are no longer the dominant player they once were. Apex Analytics is thriving. My relationship with parts of my mother's family remains distant, a necessary consequence of setting unbreakable boundaries. It's a somber truth that sometimes building your best future means leaving certain people behind, even if they are family. The money was just a symbol. The real value was in learning my own strength, in refusing to be a victim, and in using the very situation designed to limit me as a launch pad for something greater. They revoked my signing fee, hoping to control me or push me out without real cost to them. Instead, I used the fire of that injustice and the resources I earned honestly to help build something that would compete with them directly. It was a harsh lesson, a painful journey, but ultimately, it led me to a place of greater strength, independence, and integrity. My truth was my shield, and my action was my voice. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't an easy one to share, but I hope that by hearing it, you might feel a little less alone if you've faced similar betrayals. If this resonated with you, if you've ever had to stand up to family members who wronged you or felt the sting of a broken promise, please share your experience or thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and it helps create a space where we can support each other. Don't forget to hit that like button if you found strength in this story, and subscribe for more narratives about navigating difficult relationships, setting boundaries, and reclaiming your power. Your truth is valid, and you are stronger than you know.